Hi, 7th grade. Welcome to Lesson 1-4, Subtracting Integers. Solve and discuss it. A library database shows the total number of books checked out at any given time as a negative number. What are the possible numbers of books that were checked out and checked in on Monday? Explain. So when they came in on Monday, there was a total of 37 books out. When they left on Monday, there was a total of 45 books out. There are multiple things that could have happened. There are many different answers to this solve and discuss it. So we're going to pause the video. I want you guys to think about it for a couple minutes, write down an answer, and then I'll be asking for participants to get some kickboard points. Okay, so hopefully many of you shared, and I'm sure there were many different options. If there's somebody watching at home, one option would be that we're starting with negative 37, and something has to happen in order to get to negative 45. Well, if no books were brought back, that means that more books had to be checked out. Well, how do you go from 37 to 45? It is by 8. So that means if 8 books were checked out. Other things could have happened. It could have been like starting with negative 37. Maybe 2 books were checked in, but then 10 books were checked out. That still will give us an answer of negative 45. Suppose the library database showed a 0 for Monday evening. What do you know about the number of books checked out and the number of books checked in that day? So if we start with negative 37 and something happens and we end with 0, what type of numbers combine to make 0? It's one of your vocab words. Opposites. Opposites combine to make 0. Who else remembers the other vocab word we use that means the same thing as opposites? Additive, because we're adding. Additive inverses. Okay, so that would mean we needed to add 37. So that means 37 books were checked out and 37 books were checked in. Moving right along to example number 1, we are going to talk about subtracting positive integers. I hope we have some football fans. I hope we have some football fans that are not Bills fans, because you are in for a long life of disappointment. Anyways, a football team gains 3 yards on the first down. So gains, is that going to be positive or negative? Positive. So we have a plus 3. On the second down, they lose 8 yards. Losing 8 yards, is that going to be positive or negative? Negative. So they go up 3 and back 8. What is the total change in yards after the first 2 downs? So you can use what you know about adding integers in order to subtract integers. So we start here at 0. First down, we add 3. So we're going positive direction to 3. But then on the second down, from that 3, we go back 8. So going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bands in my bank account. Anyways, we get to negative 5. So that means that the total change in yards after the first 2 downs is represented by negative 5. So here they're showing 3 minus 5, but they're also showing you that subtraction is the same exact thing as adding a negative. So you can do either. You can either do subtraction, or if you feel more comfortable with it saying adding a negative, that's fine as well. If we have a positive 3 and a negative 8, just looking at the numbers and thinking back to last lesson, positive 3, negative 8, what number is bigger, 3 or 8? And the 8, is that positive or negative? So since the 8 is negative, that means our answer, we know, should be negative. So that's another way to check yourself. Let's try it. On the next play, the team gained 5 yards. If it is a gain, is it going to be positive or negative? Positive 5. And then they lost 6 yards. A loss is positive or negative? Good, negative. What is the total change in yards? Well, if we're starting with 5, we know we're subtracting 6. And we just talked about subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative. So instead of 5 minus 6, we could write 5 plus negative 6. Whatever you're more comfortable with. On the number line, they're showing us starting at 0. We're going up 5 yards, 5-yard gain. And then from that 5, we're going back 6, 6-yard loss. Remember, you're counting from where you start. So that gets us to the answer of negative 1. Now, I know I'm right because I know my answer should be negative. 6 is bigger than 5, and 6 is negative, so my answer should be negative. So the total change in yards is negative 1, so they had a total loss of 1 yard. You don't want to put the negative in this answer because they already said it was a loss, so we already know it's negative. Is the additive inverse of an integer always negative? So if I said 5, I've been using opposite a lot. I'm going to start saying additive inverse so we get used to the vocab word. So usually I'd say, what's the opposite of 5? And you'd say, now I'm going to say, what's the additive inverse of 5? And you still say negative 5. So yeah, here the additive inverse is negative. But what if I said, what's the opposite of 5? You would say, what if I said, what's the additive inverse of negative 5? It's 5. So no, the additive inverse is not always negative. No, because the additive inverse of a negative number is positive. Next, example 2. Ian's football team lost 2 yards on a running play when they received a 5-yard penalty. What is the team's total change in yards? So they lost 2 yards. So a loss is positive or negative? Negative. And then they received a 5-yard penalty. Well, if you know anything about football, penalties mean they go backwards. So they're going to lose 5 yards again. So this is why we are subtracting integers. So here we have negative 2 minus 5. We have 2 negatives. That means our answer is going to be what? Positive or negative? Negative. So 2 negatives give a negative. Just like when we were doing addition. So here we start at 0, we go back 2, and we go back 5 more. Remember, subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative. So the team's total change in yards is represented by negative 7, so they lost 7 yards. Now, here's the most important part. Find negative 7 minus negative 8. If we are minusing a negative, if you ever see 2 minus signs directly next to each other, 2 negatives next to each other make a positive. So if you ever see 2 negatives next to each other, I want you to change them both to plus signs. My marker is a little too heavy. So change them both to plus signs. Okay? So negative 7 minus negative 8, I change those both to plus signs. It's the same thing as negative 7 plus 8. So what's happening is if you say minus a negative, you're negating yourself. That's like saying my hair is not blonde. So I'm saying it's not blonde, which really means it is blonde. So this is not negative. So it's not negative, meaning it's positive. Okay. So negative 7 plus 8 gives us positive 1. I want you to try A, B, C, D, E, and F on your own. When you are finished, raise your hand and we will come around and check. Then you will be given your exit quiz.